What's also risen, not necessarily just under his leadership, but in recent years, Adam, is the multi-club model, which at the moment appears to be only going in one direction.
Yeah, more and more and more of it, which is interesting because we don't really know if it's a sustainable working model. We know it's a sustainable working model when, you've got the funds of Abu Dhabi behind you. We know it's a sustainable working model when you've got a huge drinks company behind you like Red Bull. Is it a sustainable working model when, someone decides to buy, I don't know, a club in the Championship, a club in the third division in France, a club in the second division in Italy, a club in the Indian Super League, and wants to make profit from it? We don't really know yet. I don't think there's enough evidence to say it, but it's very much popular. It's very much in on vogue at the moment. I think it's becoming a very, very central question to the Manchester United takeover, because you had this situation where you had obviously PSG owned by a Qatari entity and another Qatari entity effectively having to be set up in order to try and buy Manchester United, because you couldn't have, well, they probably could have found a way in the end if they'd have really fought it, but it made it smoother to have separate entities. And then you also have, even more pressingly, Ineos, who own the French club Nice, bidding to buy Manchester United as well. And Jim Ratcliffe's probably getting a pretty easy ride at the moment over. He's not basically answered the question of, if you're the Manchester United owner in a month's time, how on earth are you going to deal with this? So that is becoming a huge question, and I think it's a question that still has questions economically in terms of, is this a viable business model? It's a question that I think has issues ethically around, should these clubs that, as we've been saying, are kind of bastions of local communities and meant to really represent a local community, be kind of folded into a group and be kind of used as a resource or as part of a network for a broader kind of conglomerate? And it does seem like, based on Sheffrin's interview with Gary Neville last week, that the rules are going to change and it's going to become a lot easier for these big kind of conglomerates of football clubs to develop.
Ollie Kaylor wrote in The Athletic, in its annual report on European club football landscape, UEFA said that no fewer than 82 of its top-tier clubs now have a cross-investment relationship with one or more clubs. They also then added, it goes out saying that the majority of them will not be successful.
Oh, I think that's absolutely right. On the one hand, I think it can be very clever. When you look at all the post-Brexit rules that came in, and a way for clubs to get round, not being able to transfer under 18s anymore, is, well, have a partnership stroke invest with a club on the continent, do it that way. Look at what Tony Bloom's doing with the club in Belgium and Brighton. That seems sensible and there seems thought behind it. But the flip side of that is, it's the hoovering up that we get. The end result of all of this is we get to a position where it's, well, Ollie said 3 or 4, but 5 or 6 big conglomerates basically running football, which clearly we don't want. But UEFA have got themselves in a complete bind with it since the Red Bull case. As soon as you've got Salzburg and Leipzig playing each other in a European match, how on earth do you come back from that?
Laura mentioned Tony Bloom there, Matt, and Adam mentioned Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos. Laura said that Tony Bloom's, it makes a lot of sense if you look at Brexit rules or whatever. Jim Ratcliffe, going to Adam, has got an easy ride. Does it depend on the size of the clubs that you own?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think the that Union Saint-Gilles story with Brighton has perhaps crept up on people because they came from nowhere. They've had an incredible sort of recovery turnaround, and Brighton, of course, haven't yet made sort of serious Europe. Well, haven't played in Europe yet. I think there's a chance, right? So we haven't got to that point yet. I think the point with Nice and United is Nice have played in Europe for the last few years, and of course United see themselves playing in Europe every year. So there's very obvious UEFA issue there, because there is a rule at the moment that you can't play in the same competition if your owner has control over both of you. So that was the infamous Red Bull case with Salzburg and Leipzig. And Laura's right. You know, UEFA did it cave? Yeah, certainly didn't put up a very good fight. Red Bull worked out a way of creating separation, and that was allowed to happen. And yet we've seen the last 3-4 years that relationship, the whole premise of the multi-club model, which is to create a network, to share data, to share players, to provide shop windows. The same thing that the Pozzos have been doing at Udinese and Watford, the same thing that the Châtelet was doing with his clubs, the same thing that ENIC were doing with their clubs 25 years ago. Red Bull have done it better than most, right? And yet they're doing it in the Champions League. And UEFA had a look at it, and UEFA lost. And because it lost, I think it can't hold the line. So for me, Ceferin's interview was the white flag.
If you from your point of view, Laura, just a final one on this. If I'll just pick a random club here, if Sevilla decided to take a stake in Grimsby, would you be happy?
If they're going to give us all their players, that would be all right. I think initially my reaction would be to struggle with it, and I'd have to look at it and think, you know, why ultimately. And I mean, clearly in that position, Grimsby will be the feeder. So, you know, would I want to follow a club that is classified as a feeder club, i.e., you know, sacrificing themselves for the greater good, so to speak? And I wouldn't, would be the answer. So it's got to be it would have to be a reciprocal relationship, i.e., the model Bloom's managed to create. We know they're in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. But it's another one of those big questions about what we want our football to be and to look like.
It's also when you have that kind of big brother, baby brother relationship. I don't know, you know, Manchester City and Mumbai City, right? For example, it kind of, maybe this is just our perspective, it kind of sits a bit easier. When I look at something like Crystal Palace, Lyon, who are not in that different position in their respective tables at the moment, Lyon probably a bit better. That I find very, very difficult in terms of what is the balance of power between those networks, who's getting the focus, who, you know, if there's a spare 5 million in the ownership group that summer, who's getting the cash, you know, for a summer transfer. And I think fans will be looking at that as well. And I think that owners have to be very, very careful about which clubs they take on and how that's perceived. I think that's a very dicey issue. When you're working very different markets, as CFG have done, they've managed to not really cross over each other's paths too much. But I think that Crystal Palace Lyon one is a really interesting one to watch going forward.
And what happens with United as well? And
United Nice.
Yeah, Ratcliffe's made a play for Chelsea, made a massive play for Manchester United. If he doesn't get United, what does he do? Just go back to Nice and say, oh, well, I'll focus on you now. I mean, if I was a Nice fan, I'd be up in arms.
Look, yeah, I completely agree.
Flat.
Well, yeah. I think Adam's hit the nail on the head, right? We're creating farm teams, like US style farm teams. And a lot of these groups are, you know, American. A lot of the new ones anyway are American. And in a baseball farm system, there is absolutely no dispute that the mud hens are below the skylarks are below the whatever, right? And you all go up to the major league, right? There's no row over player, right? It's the pathway. But I think Lyon and Crystal Palace, really interesting. Botafogo in the same group. I think 777 are really interesting. This American group that have been buying up stakes in clubs that seem quite similar to me. Standard Liège, Sevilla, Genoa, Hertha Berlin. Where's the pecking order there?
Looking at Everton, yeah.
Everton. Even Pagliuca.
Also, rules out Sevilla for Grimsby. Does that?
It does.
I picked the wrong example. Damn.
Yeah,
sorry.
Grimsby on a level there, where they've got aspirations and dreams too, as we know. So I think that's where it becomes problematic. And even the City Football Group, which Adam's right, have been cannier. They have gone strategic, right? So places of importance to Abu Dhabi, New York, Mumbai, Japan, etc. One in China. But the European teams have been very much the minnows, like Lommel and I can't remember the one in Belgium.
Girona.
Girona, a little stake in Girona. So they haven't created potential competitors for European places with their group. But they tried to buy one in the Netherlands. And the fans of that team were like, we don't want to be anyone's farm team. We don't want to be anyone's B team. And they said no. So there was a setback there, even to see, CFG, who thought, surely you want to be part of our gang. No, we don't. So yeah, I think the multi-club model is the idea of the moment, but my God, does it throw up some huge questions and challenges to football administrators and fans.